Welcome back to the show. Dana, you and I are back for another one.
We're back here. Here we are.
You know what, Dana, I really missed, we had mentioned in another episode that we haven't seen each other for, longer than we usually.
Normal. Yeah.
And it was weird.
It was weird.
It's very odd.
It's funny. We say that autistics don't really have feelings of missing someone, and I missed you.
Yeah, I did. I missed you as well. I did. It was
fun. Yep.
I look forward to these. I mean, it's too bad your day job has to get in the way,
I know. Right. We could do podcasts forever now, and people would be like, yeah, that's maybe a little bit too much. Like,
that might be too much Dana and Gwen.
Yeah.
Too much Dana and Gwen. And I don't know how much money we'll make off of our 5 subscribers. But for the 5 of you that are out there, big shout out to Steve.
Also shout out to Steve, especially. I purchased an iPad with the express goal of being able to do more animation, cartoon, drawing types of things for merchandising.
Dana.
So it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. Okay, that's amazing. But yeah, Steven, a big shout out to Steven Bigby. I mean, like he's just, Steven is just active and just in such a sweet, loving, I don't know. I love reading Steven's.
Yeah. We get some good ideas from that. And it's just nice to be reflected back that what we're doing is helping things fall into place. That's why we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we're really here to raise the community, right? Raise the community up. Like this is right. part of what we do. So Dana, it was really interesting. Go for the segue. No. I want to hear your segue.
Speaking of which, we do want to raise the community and all neurodivergence. And one of the bad things we get from people that are assuming is that when we say something like this is because of autism, people think we're making excuses when really we're just giving an explanation.
Yeah, this is a big thing because we keep talking about experiences, context, and that it's helpful to feel understood first before you're called to the mat for justice,
right?
Let's have some due process of understanding where someone's coming from. I will say, I'll speak for myself. In order, the whole raising awareness of neurodivergence as being neurological and not volitional, meaning I don't wake up in the morning, or my clients don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what? How can I absolutely screw myself today? Oh, I know. I'm gonna, right? Like that's not what's happening here. What's happening is this is the way my brain works.
Yeah.
Right. And that gives us context and understanding for understanding their behavior.
Yeah.
Something that my clients are really kind of struggling with sometimes is when do I say tap out? Like that's my neurological profile. And when do I say, you know what, even though it's my neurological profile, I want to find more coping skills. I want to elevate myself. I want to do those things. And I think, that's it though. It's that it's meaningful to that person. And it's consensual. Like for that, like that person is consenting to that piece of, yes, I understand that noise sensitivity is really, really can take me out at the knees, but going to this person's wedding because they mean so much to me is important, right?
That's a really good delineation. Yeah. So it's like, you're not just saying I have this thing and therefore I can't. It's, I have this thing, so therefore sometimes I can't, but I also want to have some efficacy. And if something is really important to me, like a wedding or something like that, are there ways to cope around that? And first thing I thought of was build in a recovery day, right? So those are things that you can think of. It's also it's helpful for you to know that you're not giving yourself just excuses. It's the whys. But I find takes on real important salience with people in your life. So I can still remember the day, exactly where I was, what I was doing when I finally told my wife, I think I'm autistic, and thinking she was going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? What is that? But she just sort of was quiet and kind of went like this. And even with her limited understanding of what it was, she's like, that just really makes sense. So it's a sense of, and it changed a lot. So for her to have the frame of it being like this sensory thing, and she has some sensory sensitivity. She's not neurodivergent, but she had, she'll get, we sort of chalk up to the fact that she grew up in kind of a quiet environment, and I grew up in a city. But she has times where if she's stressed out, another straw on the camel's back can really put her over, which is helpful, right? Because then she can empathize with my experience. And she said, for me, this is her talking, it really changed everything in terms of me understanding you, because now I have a frame, and it isn't that you're just avoiding or an excuse for something. So like if she invites me to go with her to a friend's house for this big dinner party, and before I did him and haw and go in the headlights and would try to make excuses, or I have something else planned, or I'd say yes, and then I'd freak out for weeks, or I would go and it would suffer and I'd hate it and all, and then all the fallout from that. She'd say things like, I would love you to be there, because you're my partner, but I totally get it. And then we also did a lot of communicating with each other that if it's something that is high enough of an importance to her, we can sort of use a trump card and say, I really need this from you.
Yep.
A really extreme example of this would be when her dad died. We had just gotten back from a trip to Montana, and now we're having to go back. And this is before I was out as autistic, before I was really owning it, and I was freaking out, like just energetically wise. And I'm like, what do I say? And even with that, I'm like, this is one of those moments that I do have to suck it up. And I mean that in a loving way. I'm like, there's no way in hell I wouldn't not go, right? But we had this conversation then. I was like, I'm so stressed out. I'm exhausted from the trip. There's all these other factors going on. I just need you to know that. And yes, of course I'm going. And it did start to change some things, because one of the nights we were there, the night of the funeral, all the family was getting together, and she, for the first time ever, said, if you want to stay in the hotel room, it's fine. You don't have to go. And I can't tell you how important that moment was, not just for me, but to our relationship, where it was like she understood that I have different capacities and that it's okay for us to sort of meet those needs. And then there are always going to be situations where, you need to pull the pants up and say, I need to get through this and I'll deal with it later. So I think parents do this a lot with little kids. They think it's just an excuse. The whole pathological demand avoidance, even that phrase is so much about they are digging in and they're not doing what I'm telling them, versus maybe that's their only option, because you're not understanding what they're telling you is their different neurology. Right.
Yeah.
Try to understand.
That's the control.
As an excuse. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the efficacy. I mean, I think like you're going back to efficacy. Well, and like I think I support, there's a handful of professionals that I support that have ADHD, and they're in these jobs that have a lot of juggling of things, right? Lots of open loops, lots of management of details, which is not the friendliest to that profile, that neurological profile. But yet so many other parts of their job they're excelling at. And so this idea of Gwen, what's the gap? How do you close the gap on that? And for me, it's more about like, we haven't figured out the support yet. There's parts of your job that are awful for your profile, and there's parts of your job that is amazing for your profile. I mean, this is why you're excelling and winning awards and things. But the productivity frequency or pace is slower, right? But this just means we need to establish more constraints and rules more systems for your particular profile. So it's not just, I've got ADHD, I can't do that. So you're just going to have to accommodate it. But I know that's part of my job. Like that doesn't fly either. So I think it's, starts with understanding, starts with context and experience, and then moving to what is it that I need in order to do this job or this thing, X, whatever X is, that I care about.
Yeah.
Like that's another issue, right?
Yeah. Where I teach, we just finished going through 2 full days of interviewing potential students. This is like 8 a.m. till 4 p.m, solid, straight through of like significant on time, right? And so for me, for the first time ever, and it includes lunch, and we do, have lunch with the candidates, and we're not evaluating them, but we kind of are, even during lunch, right? And so when a bunch of people are eating sandwiches and there's weird smells in there, I have so much trauma from the lunchroom as a kid. I'm just like, oh. But this year I said, I'm going, and it's in the context of now everybody knows I'm autistic. And I said, I need a sensory break. I'm going to be upstairs for that hour in our office where no one else is, eating my own food. And all I had to say was, I'm taking that time as a sensory break. And no one said, why aren't you down there? As soon as I told our program coordinator, she's like, great, awesome. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. So it is that it's not just you saying, I'm not going to be at lunch, I'm going elsewhere. It really is sort of like letting that context know, having enough conversations with that context so that they get it, so that when you do, you are gone. It doesn't feel like an excuse. It's like, oh, it's an explanation. Totally understand. I even said to one of the candidates, I said, oh, well, I see you at lunch. And this candidate, we were talking about autism. I'm fully out. I said, actually, I'm taking a sensory break at lunch. And they smiled and they're like, that's awesome. So that sense of and it's so hard to do. I mean, we're making it sound so easy. Oh, have a conversation with your partner. It is really hard to get to that level with people in your life and to sort of give that grace. And especially if you're stressed out and you want to be just like, I can't do this, like the PDA, how do you continually work on that system so that you hear the person, they have a need right now. They're not giving you an excuse, they're having a need. Maybe the need is to get away. Maybe the need is to not do those things. But if you just say no, you're leaving the other person with, I don't understand what's happening. So sometimes even if you can have pre-conversations, or even at the time, I had a friend of ours we haven't seen in a while. We were chatting on Instagram and he said, oh, I'd love to have you guys over for dinner. I haven't physically seen him in years. My wife has seen him. But he's on Instagram, and my Instagram account is the Awake Project. So he knows I'm autistic and all that. And I said, oh, I love you, Chad, but, dinners are not my thing. It's an autism thing. And he wrote back right away. He said, oh, yeah, no, I forgot. I just didn't want to invite your wife and didn't think you weren't invited. And then we laughed. And I said, always invite me, but I'm never coming. And then we were like, we laughed, So it was, the context was all that. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I do want to see him. But a dinner party was like, oh, my God, it's like I would rather hang upside down by my fingernails than go to a dinner party. Right? For lots of reasons. But it was so wonderful because he knows this about me. He didn't take it personally. And he was so sweet. He's like, I totally get it. Maybe we'll see each other at a baseball game in the summer because that's a different setting. And I'm like, let's do it. I'd love to. Let's go to a baseball game. So that it goes so far to let the people in your life know you're not making excuses. You wouldn't expect someone who uses a wheelchair to wheel up the bloody steps, right? It's not any different. It's the same exact thing. When people say you wouldn't expect someone that wears glasses to read a book without glasses, this is our version of glasses. It's whether it's accommodations or understanding it's not an excuse, or understanding the context, or learning why someone is the way they are. And it actually helps the other person out. Like I was mentioning and sharing about my wife, she has this frame, she said, that has changed everything for her. It's brought us closer. We say, I love you all the time. Whereas before, there was sort of this weird staticky stuff that was there, even though we did love each other. It really has made us be more tender with each other, and me with her too, because we get each other.
Yeah.
We want to understand each other and understand the people in your life that are on the spectrum. They will love it. Ask questions. Ask them what they need. Ask them how you can help. If they're in a situation where you feel like they're overwhelmed and they can't handle it, just say, just go. I'll take care of stuff. Just go. If you can do those things for the people in your life, you're in like Flynn, and it's so your relationships will grow. It's really awesome to see what happens when you're able to do that. Context is everything.
Context is everything, and in environment, right? So that's another way to say it.
Yeah,
Environments are
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
right? Context, environments.
right.
And Dana, I really appreciate the just the acknowledgement that this isn't easy. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that have very, very ableist workplaces. No matter how lovely and polite and respectful the advocacy's been, the education's been, the offerings have been, that there is still deep, deep running ableism. And I see ableism in professionals who are very, very efficient at their jobs. And they could never dream of having any difficulty in having the job be done, right? Because it's easy for them. So it's a different perspective. But, this is not easy. And so, we talk a lot about choosing your environments, your habitats very, very carefully. And that's not just the stimuli that's in it. It's also the people that are in it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
you can't pick who you work with. That's what makes it so hard.
I know that, right? I mean, which is why, this is why we've got unemployment rates sky high with autistics. And, if there was anything, one of the positive things that came out of COVID, Dana and I have spoken about this, is that for us, remote working has been kind of put on the map as legitimate, and that was really actually a saving grace for many of my clients, actually, who are like, I have the option to work from home,
Yeah, and I think I've shared in here, I can't remember if I shared in here, I know I have on TikTok, about ableism that I really ran into where I teach. And that was asking for accommodation for a particular classroom because they assign different classes, different classrooms. And it got into an HR person, and it started to feel ableistic and super barriered to me and humiliating. So that would be that larger system. And I'm like, oh my God, now I get how the students feel when they hit the ableist wall with things, because I'm going through it as a person that works here. Luckily for me, so if that was the larger system where I teach, the smaller system was within my work group with my direct person that I, report to in that. He said, this is just a non-issue. He emailed the president of the campus for me and said, Dana's having trouble with this. I want her to switch rooms. I'm going to make it happen. Are you okay with that? And he's like, yes, of course. So I was able to get a response from that system that was closer to me and understands it all and has that context. And then when I just got it changed, and part of me was like, should I continue to push against this larger system? Because, I didn't finish that through, and I don't like things that are undone either. And I was like, no, it's okay to get your needs met in whatever way you can. It doesn't have to be like this all or nothing. Now I have to press into this larger system and be this super duper advocate and suffer and expose myself to wounding. That's dumb, right? I got my needs met, and thank God in that group that knows more about me, my boss just came in and said, boom, we need to do this, right? And so it may feel like you're pushing against a system that isn't movable, and oftentimes it's because you're looking at the larger piece of the system, right? Where can you get that movement? And it might even be for that one day. You might say to your partner or whoever, your workmate or whatever, and just say, I have like no bandwidth today. I just want to let you know. And they may be looking at you like, why are you going to use that as an excuse to be a jerk? And be like, no, I want to let you know because I don't want to hurt you. And I realize I might, and just please know it's just a bandwidth thing. So we say communication, but it's so hard to say those things. You have to have that rapport with the people you live with or move with, and you have to trust them, to be able to do those things. But it does eventually start to change. The more people you let know, and the more you kind of normalize this and say, this is who I am and this is what I need, that was an amazing experience for me to have my boss swoop in. I wasn't expecting it. It's not something he would necessarily ever do. And I felt so protected and like, this is so awesome because he knows me so well and he knows about my advocacy. He's one of the main reasons I even do all this and finally came out as autistic. He's like, let me help. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
So you'll be surprised the more people you let know. You're always going to have the naysayers in your life and the people that are just kind of mean and jerks. But the people that really love you and want to know are going to start doing subtle things for you and they're going to get it. And so you can't get for what you don't ask for, right? You may have 99 rejections, but that one time it's worth keeping asking, try to hang in there.
And it, sadly, it falls squarely on your shoulders.
I know.
Like,
that's the part that pissed me off about the HR
right?
thing.
Of course, right? It sadly, like, and this is where my clients can become very resentful of the world, which is I work really, really hard to be in the world, and then in order to get what I need, I have to work even harder, right? In order to do that, and it's exhausting. And that idea, and that's where I'm like, we need to give you more support. Because that's the only place we can make up the difference. It can't be in you not advocating for yourself. I mean, that can't stop. That can't stop. So that means that you need more support in the advocacy, in managing or navigating those systems, in changing a job, in whatever that is. That's where the difference gets made up, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's why we do this podcast. Right. Yeah. I think it's why that episode on soft signs and autism took off so much because people want to know and they want things translated. If you read the DSM or even the ICD, which is so much better, your average person doesn't know what that looks like. They don't know whether they're the neurodivergent person or the people in their lives. You start to tell them what it looks like, how it's lived, and they're like, oh, there it is, right? And that is how you start to afford change. That's why we are doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, wow.
It's a big one. I know I'm exhausted
ending in
now.
a somber. I know it's like kind of a somber note, but
I know. I feel like we went to the gym and we had a bunch of energy and we went to the one machine where we just did it like 1,000 times in a row.
Yeah.
And now we're worn out.
But every time there's this at my gym, there's a sled that you can put weight on and you push it.
Oh,
you push it. Okay. Every time that's in the rotation of the workout, I visualize my life force just leaving my body. Leaving, like, cause it's so hard, Dana. It's so hard. Like, I don't know. I'm like, and sadly, I'll be honest, I have negative thoughts move through my head more often than positive thoughts, meaning, why do I have to pay for this? I'm paying to do this. Why do I need this level of accountability and structure in order to move my body in the way it needs to be moved to stay healthy? I really don't want to do it, be really on my thoughts.
It's why it's $1 billion a year industry because most people are like you. Yeah. I mean, that just is, this is a tangent, but related to that. Who's the guy that plays Thor again in the Marvel movies? The actor
Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth. He's obviously goes to the gym, strong. Yeah. If you haven't checked out on Nat Geo, he does a series on various parts of health, and he goes on this mission to learn how to not age as fast.
Yep.
And they ask him to do something like pushing that cart or climb up a rope under his own body weight. He can't do it. So there's a difference between like what you look on the outside and having that inner. So next time you have to push that damn sled, remember that Chris Hemsworth couldn't push it until he started working those muscles, and it takes a while for those. Yeah. But I love the analogy. That's what being neurodivergent in this world feels like. It's like pushing that sled, but the more you do it, the easier it gets because you get those muscles, you get that muscle memory, and it takes time to build up to that. It doesn't all come at one time.
Yeah. And That's another thing like I talk about is I always say to my clients, put in the reps. You got to put in the reps, like just put in the reps. But you know what I'm going to do now when I go to the gym? This is a great idea, Dana. When the sled comes out, I'm actually going to imagine Chris Hemsworth on the sled. And then I'm going to be way okay with I mean, I would rather have Chris Evans on my sled, but hey, I'll settle for a Chris Hemsworth, but I would rather have the Chris Evans. I'm just putting it out there.
You gotta love a good six pack. Yeah.
I mean, there are so many other things that I might love about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I'm gay, and as my ex used to say, we'd point out a nice looking guy, and my ex, who was a guy, would say, "Oh, I'd go to bed with him." It was sort of the joke, right? Doesn't matter. Like, "Oh, yeah, I'd sleep with him."
Oh yeah.
Like, I thought you were going to say you were going to imagine your body being that strong, but you're going to imagine getting to him.
Yeah.
Like if you
do this, yeah. I mean, you got to have reinforcement somewhere, Dana.
Right.
I don't, you know.
Yeah. You got to have your chicken and pumpkin like you make for your dog.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah. Dana just revealed I bake chicken and sweet potatoes for my dog every week.
Because you're a good mom.
I mean, because he's a special boy who needs special things.
That's right. Who doesn't love chicken and sweet potatoes? That's good stuff.
I know. It's great. Anyway, well, everyone, on that note, be good to you. Put in the reps and be good to you. Be good to you.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. Put in the reps. Be good to you.
Put in the reps. All right. All right, everybody. We will see you in the next episode. Bye.